All right, January 15th, 2022, 2 years and a day after the incident. Let's do an EPL test. Left thumb, right thumb. Oh. All right, that's not bad. Happy Aftermath, everybody. I've mentioned this concept of aftermath, my own personally invented holiday, in a couple of videos recently, so I figured I'd elaborate a little bit on that and also take the opportunity to give you guys a kind of a little mini tour of my studio, the room I've spent the majority of my time for the last nearly 2 years in, the parts you don't see, and also, talk about some of the things you've been seeing in my backgrounds that you might be curious about, what they are and what meaning they have, why they're there. So we'll get to that, but let me talk about aftermath just a little bit. Like I said, I've mentioned it in some other videos. I invented the holiday because I realized, things had changed for me over the decades. In terms of that cluster of holidays in my part of the world and in my personal traditions that run from fall through winter. So for me, that would be Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the January 1st New Year's Eve. I do remember being young enough when those were the highlights of my year, and I really invested a lot of time and energy into them. Decorating and creating a costume for Halloween and wanting to be out all night long trick-or-treating and all the candy and everything. And then Thanksgiving. In my family, that was a big extended family gathering, so you're talking, 30 people in the building, multiple tables, and it was a big thing when you graduated from the kids' table to the adult table, right? If you're familiar with that concept. And the meal would go on all day long, more than a dozen courses. It was a massive event. You didn't necessarily like everybody in the room, but the food was great. Christmas, the decorating, the present shopping, the Christmas lists, and then not only the opening and the presents and the big family meal, but also, there were places to go and people we traditionally visited. And it was a big event. And then New Year's. Even when I wasn't old enough to celebrate like an adult, I did stay up late and we would watch Dick Clark, it kind of dates me right there, and watch the ball drop in New Year's and have a celebration and listen to the fireworks go off. Sometimes it wasn't fireworks, sometimes it was idiots shooting guns in the air. But those were big things. Looking forward to that new year and that turn of the calendar was exciting. All of it was exciting. But over the decades, it's just lost all magic, it seems. And a lot of that it has nothing to do with the pandemic. This goes back well before that for me. The pressures and the demands on your time, the adulting, right? I just find it almost more of a burden to find the time and the energy to put into the holidays that I used to. And therefore, I just haven't really bothered. We might put up a couple of decorations for Halloween, a little bag of candy, because kids don't come around in my neighborhood anymore to trick or treat. What are you gonna be for Halloween this year, Mike? My answer has usually been, me, because I'm the scariest thing I can think of. Actually, if I really want to be outrageous, I'll just go put on an outfit from a previous decade and really scare people. But that's the effort I put into that. My Thanksgivings have become very, very small, intimate family affairs, so it's really just a meal. A little bit nicer than the average meal. And Christmas, almost the same. We put up a few decorations, and it's just a small family gathering, and we exchange a few presents. My kids have kind of gotten into this groove as well, where, they used to really love the holidays, and yes, they are less than half my age, but already they're not exciting them. Even Christmas, which used to be a big deal for kids. I'm kind of thankful that my children are not materialistic. Usually when I ask them what they want for Christmas, they're like, nothing. I don't really want anything. It's okay. They're concerned about money and spending and collecting stuff and getting focused on stuff. So that's another thing worth celebrating, by the way. But then New Year's. I didn't even know it was New Year's Eve until I heard the fireworks go off this year. That's how bad it's gotten. I mean, I think a lot of us during our pandemic degrees of isolation have lost track of days and days of the week and days of the month and time of year. And I barely knew it was Christmas Day when it was Christmas Day, so it's gotten bad. But several years ago, as I was experiencing this stress and disappointment and frustration with the holidays, I decided I would create my own in a way that made sense to me at the time, which is wait until that cluster of, stress and depression is over with. Start the new year sometime in January. Don't put a date on it. Don't put any pressure on it whatsoever. Just pick a day or days to treat yourself or those you care about, or both. Have a gathering, don't have a gathering. Obviously, in these times, having a gathering is a lot harder. It's discouraged. Same thing with, you could stay home or you can go somewhere. Well, we haven't been able to go places like we used to, so that might be off the table. Have a big meal, don't have a meal. Buy yourself something. Buy something, do something for somebody else. Whatever you want, whenever you want, is the rule. And while you're at it, why not just do that whenever? Throughout the year, anytime you feel like you've got something worth celebrating, celebrate life, family, friendships, what you've got, what you've lost, whatever, in any way that feels right. Now, I'm doing it this week because there were a couple of semi-auspicious anniversaries for me right together in a cluster. January 13th marks 19 years I've been serving the same agency as a consultant. Far and away the longest job I've ever had, and there are reasons for that, and I do intend to potentially I'll have to get some permissions, maybe do some videos to talk up that agency for the work that they do, because they do some really awesome, important work. So hopefully you'll see some of that in the future. Also, January 13th marked 2 months since I lost my car. I mentioned that briefly in a prior video. I got rear-ended at high speed, hard enough that my headrest put a 1-inch cut in the back of my head through my Stetson, so soft object actually cutting my scalp. I know I don't have a lot of hair there for protection, but yeah, that was a heck of a hit. The car gave its life for me. I really love that car. I had a fantastic deal on it. Really going to be tough to replace, but surprisingly, I was able to shake off those injuries, and I've been in car wrecks before. I know what to expect. I was able to shake off the injuries really, really quickly, and I attribute that to all the physical training I've been doing. Speaking of which, January 14th marks 2 years since. You guys have been following the channel. You've seen me in the braces, and I've talked about the restrictions and the pain and all that other stuff. 2 years since I got clawed and bit by that rescue cat. My hand swelled up like a balloon. Took 2 months to clear that septic joint infection. Thankfully, it didn't spread anywhere else. It got contained. But when it was all over, damage to the wrist joint and ruptured EPL tendon, so I didn't have much strength or range of motion in my thumb. I just inserted a clip at the beginning here showing you how much progress I've made. Right after that injury, that right thumb did not move in that direction at all, and I was assured it never would. The fact that I've got about 50% function back in it still hurts, it's still weak, but it's considered pretty miraculous and is worth celebrating, and I do attribute a lot of that to my investment in training in martial arts and swordsmanship. It has done wonders for my rehab recovery. So that is absolutely worth celebrating. And yes, just an additional bonus, I did find another car. It's not a new car. It's 10 years old, but I think I got a good deal on it in a market where, if you guys have been out there car shopping, with the pandemic and supply chain issues, automobile prices have gone through the roof. This is a time where there have been more car accidents than pretty much any other period in our history. The insurance companies have actually coined a new term called an arousal breakthrough, which sounds naughty. But what it means is, if you've got a population that is kind of shut in, restricted, frustrated, hopeless, depressed, and they get an opportunity to go blow off steam in any way, they tend to go for it, like behind the wheel of a car. So yeah, the rates of accidents and unfortunately also fatalities has gone through the roof. So it did take them 2 months to get around to assessing my vehicle, getting the paperwork rolling. UPS lost my documentation twice in a row. That was really confidence inspiring. But all got done. I got a new vehicle. Hopefully I'll be happy with it. Despite everything that's happened, I'm sitting pretty good. So that's all worth celebrating. And I hope that all of you have something that is worth celebrating. Let me know in the comments. I love our conversations. But let me give you a look around, well, the box I've spent most of my time in for the last almost 2 years, answer some questions about some things in the background, show you some of the views you don't get to see, and, well, let's get to it. All right, before I move it out of the way, let's start with the chair. You usually don't get to see what's on the back of the chair, and yes, this is a gun belt on the chair. But on the back of my chair are my two basket hilt back swords, my Cold Steel and my Hanwei, and down here at a camera shot. What I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to serve as your GPS and kind of point around the cube so you can kind of see where things are, but then I'll put up photos instead because I think they're going to be better resolution than my camera can show you, and I don't want to do that nauseating shaky cam thing of bringing you around the room that way, so we're going to try it that way. Below the camera shot, yes, on the back of my chair there is a actual firearm, functional firearm. It's a single action revolver, Ruger Vaquero to be specific. It is unloaded, and I do keep this one unloaded, but I always obsessively check it. The reason it's on the back of the chair is to keep it handy for that physical training routine. Being able to do this was impossible for me for over a year after my injury. The fact that I can operate this firearm at all now is not nearly as fast as I used to be, but the fact that I can operate it at all, that's huge. Also, my training in general has given me a lot more strength than I think I've ever had in being able to support and aim, especially with one hand. And this is a heavy gun. This is like 38 ounces. So yeah, having this thing handy on the back of my chair, I know people might find it a little bit intimidating, but it's just another tool in my martial arts physical therapy arsenal. All right, let's get the chair out of the way. And then we will go this way. All right, so I'm going to put photos up while I point. Over here on this side of the room is a stand that I made, well, over 30 years ago when I was first married and we couldn't afford real furniture. And it's not the prettiest, but it's held up pretty well. This has now become the home for my complex hilted European style sword. So over here you'll see my musketeer rapier, my Munich town guard, my Koli Schmards hanging up here for, well, at least for now. The Cold Steel Cavalier is over here, the Katzbalger, the Kingston side sword, the Christus Imperit down on the side. You'll see that side sword project I showed you in a previous video that still doesn't have a proper sheath. And the sword stick project that I got the parts for from Matthew Jensen. Still also a work in progress. On the top is the Beast Kukri and a couple of stray Suba that don't have a home right now. They got replaced with nicer things. On the wall there are 3 pieces of art. One is an old painting from my son that he did when he was really young of a spaceship. It turned out actually quite nice. The photo set on the wall, that's not my wife, that's my baby sister, so she gave me that commemorating, well, pictures from our lives together, including pictures from 2 of her weddings that I participated in, and I am very happy to say that the second one has lasted very well. Above that is one of the my favorite works from my daughter. So that's a print I picked up from one of her gallery shows. And you'll see a couple more of her works as we go around the room. Now next to the stand, that's where Stabim tends to live, so it gives me the best reach possible in this room for thrusting practice, but because the stand is in the way, I can't really get him in the camera effectively. Maybe I'll do some adjustments and we could do some more thrusting videos. I would really just like to go outside, but let's move around the room. All right, so back over here on the dresser, we have kind of an altar-looking setup where I have my original antique Shingunto in a place of honor with some of my nicer Japanese style swords, the reproductions. You'll see my bucklers over here. I have my Mark IIs and my sub-hilts over here, my left-hand daggers. The rest of my Kukri collection is also over here, and a couple of jitte from my old martial arts practice. Up on the wall is more art from my daughter, first of all. She did this tiger painting for me when she was young to commemorate my questionable martial arts skills. But it's always kind of become a centerpiece of whatever desk or office that I've had, which I have since surrounded by my Bagua deer horn knives that I was able to find finally after all this time. You'll see a growing collection of European style swords as well. My long swords are over here, my arming swords are over here. Above that, the Lue sword Tachi, and then more art. 3 pictures over here are, again, prints of some of my daughter's work that I'm really fond of, especially this one that she calls Doll's Dream. It's a favorite of mine. The dragon is a puzzle, which may or may not be apparent, that I did with my son when he was very young, and we were so proud to get it finished that we Mod Podged it and stuck it on his bedroom wall. This used to be his room, and don't tell the landlord, but it kind of got stuck there. So when I moved in and turned it into my office studio, it's just sort of stayed there, and it seems appropriate. Now, moving across the back wall, well, first of all, you may have noticed that often there is a dragon puppet. These used to be my daughter's. She got old enough to want to give away her stuffed animal collection, but I said, hell no, I'm keeping this. There are some pieces of art related to my writing. I do a lot of character and concept art for my literary, well, questionably literary work. Across the top row are 5 of the 8 covers from my God Mars series and 3 of the 5 covers from my Gray Man series. So if you happen to look those up online, those will be familiar images to you. And I've got 2 of the earliest Lue swords that I acquired, just seemed to find an appropriate place on the wall. Another interesting piece of trivia, you may have noticed this dinosaur pillow on the daybed. It used to be my son's t-shirt that his mother then turned into a pillow, which also just kind of came with the room. So I figured I'd leave it. Memories of old times. All right, let's go this way. All right, over here on my kid's old toy box, have another sort of altar-looking setup with my 2 very tenacious houseplants, and another set of swords. So you've got my reproduction Guntos over here, and my Ryujin Japanese-style swords are over here. That Tanto that I had reviewed is a selection of my braces sitting over here and a couple of other knickknacks. Next to it is another stand that's got my hats on it and some of my lighting setup. Then as we move around to this side of the room, there's more art associated with my writing. Some of it is quite historic. As you look at this side of the room, there's kind of a glam rock-looking picture, and then the infamous silhouette of the angel, which has kind of become my signature piece. A couple of other very 70s looking pieces of art, and the reason for that is they are 70s art. This is art I did way back when I was a teenager. A lot of it I preserved over time, along with a couple of new pieces that are, again, character concepts for my novels. On the walls you'll also see my recently acquired sabers. You'll see a ground chicken is sitting up here, often serves as my camera stand for shots like this. And I've got my other longer blades. I've got my Cold Steel Practical Pro. I have a Nagamaki, which I haven't shown you, sitting on this wall. My Chinese Jin and Dao, and also my old Marto Ninjato is over here behind my monitor. The globe is my son's, as well as little frogs on that stand. He used to be really big into frogs. You might have seen one on the wall switch that's sort of, well, it's magnetic, so it's sort of holding my side sword. Yes, I do have one of those Cyrax with the demon mask. And yeah, so one thing that pretty much anybody who enters the room points out is that Mike is surrounded at any given time by many, many, many sharp, dangerous objects. So it's kind of an interesting environment, but for me it makes sense. It has gotten quite cluttered with said sharp objects over the last couple of years. So I will probably slow down my purchasing now and spend some time focusing my training on really getting familiar and deciding which of these I really like, and that may also include deciding which of these I might pass on to other people. So something to consider in the future. Until then, I hope 2022 is getting off to as best a start as it can for all of you. I know this time of year can be crushingly depressing. I hope you've gotten through it okay. You're hanging in there. Let me know how you're doing in the comments. Again, our conversation is there for many good reasons. But until next time, I know this was probably kind of boring and long-winded, but thanks for watching, following, subscribing, and I hope to see you back for, whatever comes next.